Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Troilus and Cressida. We're down to the last two Troilus and Cressida monologues before we move on to the next play. And today we get to hear from Troilus in Act 5, Scene 10, which, oh my goodness, yesterday we were in Act 5, Scene 5, so we have a lot of catching up to do. Be prepared. This is going to be a long video. So, all right, in Act 5, Scene 5, we had Diomedes winning Troilus' horse, and then he sent it off to Cressida as a gift. Then we find out that Patroclus had died, so they send the body to Achilles, hoping that that will light a fire under him, which it does. Both Achilles and Ajax decide that they're going to dress for war today and go out and fight. In Act 5, Scene 6, we start out with Ajax comes in and then Diomedes comes in. Both of them are looking for Troilus because they want to fight him. And fortunately, Troilus shows up and he wants his horse back from Diomedes. So the three of them start fighting and they fight their way off stage. But then Hector comes in looking for Troilus also. But then Achilles comes in. Remember, Achilles wants to kill Hector. So they do a little bit of fighting. And then Achilles needs to take a breath. So he's like, and Hector's like, yeah, take a breath if you need to. And Achilles like, I will, and I'll come back to fight another day. And he kind of runs away. But then Troilus comes in to tell Hector. Remember, Troilus and Hector are on the same side. They're both Trojans and they're actually brothers. Troilus comes in and tells Hector that Ajax captured Aeneas, and Troilus then runs off to try to avenge Aeneas and get him back. And a random Greek soldier comes in who has really nice armor. And Hector's like, that armor would look so much better on me. So he goes like he's going to fight this Greek soldier who just takes off, and Hector chases him off stage. And that's the end of Act 5, Scene 6. Now, remember, we're in the middle of a war. So this is all just really fast stuff. And in the actual folio, this isn't divided up into scenes. It's just sort of a rapid fire. This is the chaos of what is happening during this war, during this particular battle in this war. But anyway, somebody decided it needed to be split up into scenes. And at the top of Act 5, Scene 7, we have Achilles talking to his minions, who are known as Myrmidons. And he tells them, like, stop fighting right now. We're looking for Hector. And when we find Hector, we should all surround him and kill him. And then they leave the stage. And Thersites does like a quick little cameo. He comes in and he's like, you're terrible, and you're terrible, and you're terrible, and you're terrible. But then Priam's bastard son, Margerolon, I think is the name. It's like Marjorie, but more masculine. So Margerolon comes in to challenge Thersites to a fight. But Thersites is like, hey, I'm a bastard too. I love bastards. So he runs away to avoid fighting, but Margerolon runs after him, and that's the end of the scene. And if I totally slaughtered that name, I'm very, very sorry. Act 5, Scene 8, Hector comes in wearing that armor that the random Greek soldier had because he won it off of him. And he's like, that's pretty good for today's day of work. So he takes off his helmet and he sets down his shield and he's like, I've done enough. But then Achilles comes in, ta-da, and with his minions, his Myrmidons, they come upon Hector, and Hector's like, wait a second, I'm unarmed. And they're like, so what? And they surround Hector and they kill him. And then the Greeks sound a retreat alarm because apparently it's time to be done fighting for the day. And Achilles is like, you know what? On my way back to camp, I'm tying Hector's body to the tail of my horse to drag him all the way across the battlefield just to show everybody that I'm the one that killed Hector. So he does, and that's the end of Act 5, Scene 8. So Hector's now dead at this point, which brings us to Act 5, Scene 9, where we're in the Greek camp, and we've got Agamemnon and Nestor and Diomedes and Ajax, and Achilles' minions, his Myrmidons, come in and say, Achilles killed Hector, and they're like, whoa. And Agamemnon's like, maybe we can actually win this war now. And that's the end of Act 5, Scene 9. Act 5, Scene 10, we're on the Trojan side of things, where the Trojans now have to deal with the fact that Hector is dead. So Troilus arrives and he tells Aeneas and Paris and Antenor and all these others that Hector is dead and that his body was dragged across the field, tied to Achilles' horse. And he's really, really, really not happy about this, because remember, that's his brother. His brother's body was just tied to a horse and drug across a field. And Aeneas is like, you're kind of upsetting everyone. And Troilus is like, you understand me not, that tell me so. I do not speak of flight, of fear, of death, but dare all eminence that gods and men address their dangers in. Hector is gone. Who shall tell Priam so? Or Hecuba? Let him that will a screech owl I be called, go into Troy and say there, Hector's dead. There is a word. Will Priam turn to stone? Make wells and niobes of the maids and wives, cool statues of the youth, and in a word, scare Troy out of itself. But march away. Hector is dead. There is no more to say. Stay yet, you vile abominable tents, thus proudly pite on our Phrygian plains. Let Titan rise as early as he dare. I'll through and through you, and thou great-sized coward, no space of earth shall sunder our two hates. I'll haunt thee like a wicked conscience still, that moldeth goblins swift as frenzy's thoughts. Strike a free march to Troy, with comfort go. Hope of revenge shall hide our inward woe. So Troilus is very upset about his brother's death, is what this boils down to. It's half wanting revenge and half eulogizing his brother, and throw in there a dash of who's going to tell Hector's father and mother that he's dead, and what is it going to do to the entire city of Troy to learn that their champion Hector is dead. Like, this is going to be the undoing of Troy, the fact that we lost Hector. That's what the first half of the speech basically is. But then the second half of the speech, he decides that he doesn't want that to happen, and that it's worth still staying and fighting to get revenge for this. So the second half of it, he is vowing revenge on Achilles for having killed Hector. He's like, we're gonna do it, we're gonna go, and we're gonna avenge this, we're gonna build Troy back up, and that's how we're gonna deal with our grief, our inward woe, is we're gonna seek revenge instead. At which point Pandarus enters, like he's going to say something, and Troilus shoves him aside and curses him by saying, let anybody who is ever shameful or wicked or vile be associated with the name Pandarus, because you are the worst. Because remember, that was the thing. Troilus was going to say that his name was going to go down as being like the truest of all true men, and Cressida's name was going to go down as being the truest of all true women, and Pandarus was going to be known as the person who brings lovers together. But that's not what we know a pander or pandering to be. It has more to do with trading sex for money, that sort of thing. So Troilus' curse on Pandarus actually worked. So Troilus shoves Pandarus out of the way, and he leaves the stage, and everybody else has left the stage at this point except for Pandarus, who has a moment on the stage by himself to give us tomorrow's monologue, which will be the last monologue of the play. So I will see you then for that, and for a bit of a wrap up on all of this crazy chaos that was a war wherein Patroclus and Hector died and everybody else seems to have lived. A few random Greeks that we didn't really know that well died, but yeah, Hector and Patroclus were the main casualties out of all of this chaos. And yeah, we'll hear from Pandarus and do a wrap up tomorrow. I'll see you then. Mwah.